Hey everybody, Clayton here at etrailer.com. Here at eTrailer, we install, test, and review a lot of different products to help you as a customer make a more educated decision before your purchase. Today we're going to be working on a 2010 Dodge Nitro. We're going to be taking a look at, and I'll be showing you how to install the Redarc Tow Pro Liberty brake controller. This is what our Redarc is going to look like installed. The only visible part of our braking controller is going to be this actual knob. So this is pretty awesome when you compare it to a lot of the other brake controllers on the market. This is what most brake controllers are going to be like. So when you just compare the size, I mean, it's awesome. You're not going to be hitting your knees on it or anything like that. The only visible part is going to be this knob. And on a traditional brake controller, they're mounted down here. So you kind of have to reach down to operate them, or you're going to bump your knee getting in and out. It's going to allow you to use the brakes on your trailer to better stop the trailer and not push your vehicle. This is going to save the brakes on your vehicle and make the ride a whole lot more comfortable. A Redarc is going to be a proportional brake controller. It's going to work with electric brakes and electric over hydraulic, and it's also going to work with 1 to 2 axles. So that's going to cover a wide variety of trailers out there. And like I said, our brake controller is proportional. So what that's going to mean is however hard we push the brakes in our towing vehicle, it's going to give that same braking pressure to our trailer. That's going to make the ride a lot more comfortable and a lot more safe. So let's say we're pulling up to a stoplight and somebody pulls out in front of us and we have to hit the brakes pretty hard. We're going to get that same braking pressure to our trailer. But whenever you're using it every day and you're just lightly pressing the brakes, it's going to be super comfortable. Adjusting the braking power on your brake controller is going to be super easy. Simply just turn the dial to your desired number. So let's say your trailer's really heavy, you want your brakes pretty high, simply just dial it to where you'd like, and then if you realize it's too much, just adjust it on the fly. And if you want to manually override it, so this is just going to apply the brakes on the trailer. If you're going down a steep hill and you want a little bit less pressure on your vehicle, but more braking on the trailer to kind of slow you down, all you do is dial it to your desired number and then push the button. As you can see, the light is kind of a pink color there, but as you dial it up to 10, it becomes more red, letting you know it's more aggressive. We have our brake controller hooked up to our tester box just to show you how it works. So I currently have the brake controller set on the second setting. I'll press the button. As you can see, it gives a little bit of braking pressure, but if I dial that up to 10, you can see how much more pressure it applies. And in conclusion, I really do like this brake controller. It's definitely something I'd consider purchasing. I like how streamlined it is. You're not going to be bumping your knee on it every day, so it's going to be super livable and it's going to work really well for a long time. Now, in terms of installation, getting it installed isn't too bad. You are going to need a couple other part numbers. If your vehicle does not have a 7-way, you'll need to pick up our universal 7-way kit here at eTrailer, and you will need to pick up a pigtail harness specific to your vehicle, or one like this where we had to hardwire it in. With that being said, I'll show you how to get it installed. To get our 7-way installed, you are going to need a 4-pole. In this case, we had to install one of those as well. You can find a 4-pole here at eTrailer along with a 7-way kit. But essentially that 4-pole is going to plug into a 4-pole adapter onto the 7-way. Then we're going to have 3 extra wires. We're going to have a yellow wire for our reverse light wire, and in this case we're not going to be using it. We're going to have a blue wire for our brake signal, and we're going to have a black wire that runs to power. Now we're going to run all of that wiring, or those 2 wires I should say, up the frame rail, and then we'll bring it out in the engine bay. We will need to ground our entire unit, and this is where our bundle of wires is. As you can see, some wires run out this way, and this is going to be that power wire and our brake signal wire. Now we're going to run this up to the engine compartment like I said, but we're going to avoid anything hot or moving. Our wire comes down right here, run it up under this panel, and we found some factory lines. We're going to up those factory lines through this opening. Then if you follow it right there, it kind of comes down next to our fuel tank. Then the wire comes behind this bracket up to this factory line. And there's going to be an opening in your frame rail. We're going to stick those wires through there. That's going to run through our frame rail up to right here. And then it's going to come down through this hole. And I zip tied it to some wiring for our 4-way, and then come straight up this way along the firewall. So our wires are going to come up the back of our firewall. I cut back that protective coating to split our wires. The white wire, which is actually connected to our blue wire, is going to go inside, and then the black wire comes over here that goes to a circuit breaker. We use the 40 amp circuit breaker provided with our ETBC7. The silver side is going to be the side that's on the closest side to the plug, and the copper side is going to go straight to the battery. So then that wire runs over this way, kind of tucks behind, and I have it ready to connect when we get everything done. We are now ready to grab our pigtail harness. Our red wire is going to connect to our stoplight switch on our vehicle. Our white wire is going to run to ground. Our blue wire is going to connect to that white wire that we connected to the blue wire on our 7-way. And then the black wire is going to connect to power. And when we run this through the firewall, we are going to need to add another circuit breaker close to the battery. We're now ready to find a grommet to use to access our firewall. You want to come down to your pedals, kind of follow those up the back of the firewall. There's going to be a plug on the left side next to your brake pedal, and we're going to use a pocket knife to poke a hole in that, and eventually we'll use a drill bit to open that up. So it's kind of hard to see that grommet from the inside, but if you come down to the outside, I went ahead and already drilled our hole, and it's right there below our brake booster. You just look at the end of my finger, you can kind of see that opening. Now I just want to start feeding our wires through. You probably aren't going to need a pull wire since this does go right through down by our pedals. Now I'm just using the excess black wire from our kit to use as the power wire for our brake controller. Now you want to feed through our white wire that's attached to the blue wire. We'll do the same thing, push it through the firewall, and we can grab it on the other side. And we'll just pull this one tight. I'm going to run a thinner gauge wire to use as a ground, and using the thinner wire is going to keep us from getting it confused with our brake signal wire. It's just going to be a lot easier to ground this out here than it is inside. So we're going to feed this through the firewall as well. Now I want to trim all of our wires to where they're about the same length. And we're going to strip these back and make our connections. And our butt connectors were included with our ETBC7. We'll just get these all crimped on. And we are going to have to trim back our wires on our pigtail a little bit farther, since we're going to need to double them over due to the size of our butt connectors. We'll just kind of double that over like so. We'll add it to our butt connector. With our connections made for these 3 wires, we do want to add some electrical tape. We're now ready to connect our red wire to our stoplight switch. Now I went ahead and already did it, so it's going to be a little bit easier to see for you, but you just want to pull down on this dash panel. That's going to reveal all of our wiring. This switch is going to be our stoplight switch. If you follow your brake pedal all the way up, you'll see this right here. We're going to be using our white wire with a green stripe. We're going to be connecting it to our red wire using a quick splice. You're going to put that green and white wire into the rearmost slide of your quick splice. You're going to slide your red wire in and then crimp it down. We're now ready to mount our circuit breaker. We're going to be using a 20 amp circuit breaker for the pigtail harness. You want to find a good spot, and I already put the one for our 7-way right here. So this should be a pretty good spot. We're just going to self-tap that in right to our fender. We now have our circuit breaker mounted. We're ready to cut our power wire. We're just going to cut that back. We'll strip back the end and add one of the ring terminals provided in our ETBC7 kit. Now I want to grab the nut off of our circuit breaker. We now slide our wire onto the silver post of our circuit breaker, and then we will loosely install our nut. We're now going to grab the side that we trimmed off. We're going to be adding the same ring terminal to this side. We'll be adding this to the copper side of our circuit breaker. Now we can come back and tighten down our ring terminals on the circuit breakers with a 3/8 socket. You don't want to tighten these down too much, but just nice and snug will do. We're now ready to trim our new power wire to the same length as the one from our ETBC7. So we'll just trim that there. We'll just add a larger ring terminal to this end. Now ready to mount our ground. I'm just going to run it right here to our fender, just above our circuit breaker. We are now ready to add our ring terminals to our battery. We'll just remove that 10mm nut on top. With our ring terminals on, we'll reinstall it. As far as getting our pigtail installed, we are completely done there. All I have left to do is clean up our wiring. I'm actually going to wait to do that until we get the rest of our Redarc installed. We now want to pull down our underdash panel. There's going to be a metal bracket right here. That's going to be really good for mounting. As you can see, our operating unit sits on there really nice. We're going to have plenty of clearance from our cover. So I'm actually going to plug our pigtail harness in first. So you just want to feed your pigtail harness up. You'll plug that into your operating unit until you hear a nice click. You can give it a tug and make sure it's not going anywhere. Now we can plug in our other end. Our wire that actually goes to our plug is going to have a 90 and a straight end. We're going to use our 90 degree here. Now I'm going to grab some two-sided tape, stick it to this, and then run a zip tie around it to keep it nice and secure. We now have our box securely mounted, so we're going to want to find a good spot to mount our switch. So I'm going to put our wire back behind our dash. And we can just flip up our panel. Now we're going to kind of examine our dash and find a good mounting spot. Actually, right up here is going to be a really good spot. I looked at it earlier and there is a little opening behind there. So what we're going to do is open up our panel again. And we're going to lift out on our corners. And we can lift our whole dash panel out carefully. On the right side of your dash panel, there's going to be a small Chrysler logo. We're actually going to put the center of our drill bit on that logo right there. And then we're just going to slowly drill that out. And then used our plastic ring to make a mark right here to draw out the hole for our LED light. So we'll grab our 1/8 inch drill bit and carefully drill that out. We'll set our plastic ring on, then we'll take our assembly with our LED light facing up. We'll line that up. We'll set our ring on. Then we can take our backing nut, drop that over our button, then start to thread it on. If you are having trouble getting your knob mounted to your panel, there is some plastic on that lip that you are going to have to shave down. We had to shave down quite a bit to get our nut on the other side to actually tighten down. And it's important you want to make sure that this button actually clicks once you get it tightened down. We now want to turn this all the way to the left until it stops. And we want to grab our adjustment knob. We want our 0 pointing straight up and down. We'll push that on. Now we're ready to plug it in. Now behind our gauge cluster, there's going to be an opening in our wiring. We want to take our Redarc end. We're going to feed that behind our dash and pull it out right there. Now I'm going to take our plug and put our wire into the plug. Now we want to slide our dash panel back into place. When you're reinstalling your dash panel, you want to make sure that your trip meter, your button right there, is still able to be used, and it is. So we just want to snap our dash back into place. Now we're ready to clean up all of our wiring. Now you want to make sure to come back and add some black silicone to your grommet to keep those elements outside. With our tester box hooked up, we can now test out all of our functions. We'll start off with our brake lights, our left turn, our right turn, and our running lights. Now we can test out our brake controller. As you can see, our Redarc is flashing blue-green. This just means it needs to be calibrated. So we're going to go out and stop pretty hard about 20 times, and that's going to calibrate our system. It's going to turn that light blue. And as you can see, our LED is now blue, so we know we're calibrated and good to go. With everything tested and working properly, we're now ready to hit the road. That's going to do it for our look at and our installation of Redarc's Tow Pro Liberty on our 2010 Dodge Nitro.